I'm Aisha Ibrahim, and I teach at the University of Sierra Leone, Rabi College specifically, at the Institute for Gender Research and Documentation. From the literature, I mean, it says that it's important because you want to get the support of men in relation to gender-based violence and women's empowerment. And it is important because most of the perpetrators of gender-based violence are seen to be men. And the belief is that when you involve them in this process and they get to understand why it's important not to be violent towards women, that will reduce the chances of women experiencing gender-based violence. Secondly, it's because traditionally, especially in my context, men are the decision makers. And women have to take permission most of the time from these men. So if these men are part of the process itself and they become champions for women, and there's less chance for them to be abused or to experience gender-based violence. So it's about the power dynamics of men within the community and within the household, as well as the fact that they are mostly perpetrators. Well, the male engagement strategy itself focuses on I mean, as it says, male engagement, it focuses on having men at the center of this discourse. It centers around encouraging men to look at issues around masculinity and the kinds of power that they have within their communities to address gender-based violence. So the male engagement strategy that was developed by the state and by the Ministry of Gender focuses on encouraging men to become allies and to become champions for women within their communities. And it's different in the sense that we didn't have a strategy. I mean, we had organizations, mainly two male-led organizations that were working on involving men in the fight against gender-based violence and then reproductive health issues. So this time around, there's a strategy that organizations should use while implementing the programs. And so that's why the strategy was developed. So it becomes part of the implementation of programs and projects that are non-governmental organizations are running in the community. So it becomes one of the strategies that's going to be used when they're implementing their programs. Well, there are a number of interesting things that came out. I think what we set out to do was to look at the way the idea of male engagement is used internationally by the people that fund or the donors. And so how do they conceptualize the concept? How do they conceptualize male engagement? And how do people that are implementing programs and projects in the communities, how are they implementing them based on this concept of male engagement? So that's what we set out to do. And we found out that, yes, the women, all of the organizations we talked about did confirm that it's important that men are engaged in the fight against, in the fight against gender-based violence. But interestingly, they do not have, it's not, I would say it's not, they haven't really thought it through about how they're going to do this. Because as of now, only these two organizations, Men Engage and Find Sierra Leone, which are male-led, and they've been doing this for a long time. And they are the ones that are going around, so they will subcontract these organizations to do these activities where they talk to men about engaging in health issues and engaging in the fight against gender-based violence. So that was interesting, that the discourse around male engagement, which was supposed to be transformational, it's about transforming the attitudes, belief systems, and practices of men in the community. But we find out that, well, that was not the case per se, that at times they were more reinforcing of patriarchal discourses around the leadership of men and the role of men within the household. So it was like telling the men, well, you are powerful, so you need to protect women. And for us, we didn't see that as transformation. And transformation is about men questioning their privilege, questioning their positions within societies, and how this relates to the people that they work with, the spouses, women in the communities, and how questioning and understanding their privileged position can help to reduce gender-based violence. So that was one of the interesting things that came out from our study. I think, I don't know. Yeah, well, one of the challenges would be really convincing the men that it is important for them to be equals with their spouses, because most of the targeting men that are getting men to be allies within their homes first before they take it out to the community. So one of the challenges will be getting that transformation. But it takes a long time for somebody who has grown up in a patriarchal society, who has internalized patriarchal discourses of masculinity and power and privilege, for them to change overnight. So these projects are usually short term, and this type of approach needs a longer term, because it's long time involvement within the community for you to be able to see the changes that are occurring in the society. But one of the interesting things for me is that people, what they have done is try to make this work within our context. And so Sierra Leone particularly has tried to make this work within our context. So they've used it mostly to encourage men to support their wives in the pre and postnatal journey, the pre and postnatal journeys. So men are now involved in what happens to their wives when they're pregnant and after they're pregnant, and that has reduced to some extent. So that it has worked in that regard, because these men become involved. They go to the hospital with their wives. They encourage their wives to go, and before you find out that men would refuse their wives attending clinics by themselves, or even going there, or paying the money to go there. But because of this kind of male engagement, which I think was modified to fit that context, because it's still about men leading. It's not about men transforming gender roles. There's no transformation taking place. But in our context, I think it's important that we appreciate that this is happening, because before this didn't happen, men were not interested. When women get pregnant, that was a women's issue. But because men become interested through these projects, these activities, we see that now they support women fully to go to the hospital and how to raise their children, about spacing and all that and all those things. So at that level, it's important. What we would like to see is male engagement to become transformational, hence that men begin to question their power and their privilege. That's not happening yet, but I think at least something is happening. I think there should be some focus on masculinity and feminism, and how that can help make better men in the communities and in our societies. They have maybe a module on masculinity, but they do not really go into, they don't make men take responsibility for their actions. So the idea that, oh, you're a man, you should help your wife, or you're a man, you should behave this way because you are head of the family, you should make sure your wife goes to the hospital, and so on and so forth. Fine. But that doesn't mean that that man sees himself as an equal to that woman. So for me, it's about changing the discourse so they begin to see the rights of the woman, and think about equality with these women, and that a woman does not necessarily have to take permission from you to go and take care of her health issues, to seek contraceptive, and so on and so forth. So that is what I would like to see more of. I want to see the transformational aspect of male engagement. It's very, very important that we have men being part of this process, the process of getting women empowered, because in our context, men have a lot of power, and like I said, it's a patriarchal society where men have all the privilege and all that, they have all the power. So it's important for us to look at male engagement, but we need to look at male engagement from a feminist point of view, from a transformational point of view. So that's, I think, what these programs need to focus on. How do they get men to really understand their privilege and how to change that and the way they think about women? Because this is about the way they think about women. That's the first thing that has to be addressed. And if you still see a woman as somebody you own, if you still see a woman as somebody subordinate to you, so transformation hasn't taken place. Changing mindsets, I mean, that takes a long time. So the fight, the fight to eradicate gender-based violence or to minimize gender-based violence has to come from that perspective, where men begin to see women as individuals with rights and responsibilities, where men do not see women as their property or that they have control over these women. So that's the first step. Because if they do not accept that, they will just see a woman as a commodity, something I can do anything with. So violence, so when somebody talks back to me, that person has, disrespected me, I need to teach that woman a lesson. So if that mind frame does not change, if that the way that worldview doesn't change, then it will be difficult to really see the benefits of involving men in the fight against gender-based violence. So that's where we should come from. We should come from the position of recognizing the power and recognizing the humanity and rights of your spouse, your child, or whoever it is you're in contact with in your household. Yes, well, because at least the conversation for me, that's a huge impact. There's a conversation about women's rights. There's a conversation about control or less control of women within communities. So that conversation is taking place, and you hear people talk about 50-50 all the time. I mean, we have this organization that's called 50-50, and even the least village, you go there, somebody will say, well, the women are looking for 50-50, and so the discourse is changing a bit. That doesn't mean the attitudes are changing, but at least people are aware that now there are certain rights that women that you have to recognize, and there are certain rights that women have, that men have, that you have to take seriously. So you see that kind of impact. I mean, you see, when I went to the field, we saw these men, they had a meeting, and there was this guy, and you could see it was natural. It was not put up. He was there with his baby. He was taking care of his baby while I think the wife was in the farm or something. But it was very natural with him and the child. So you begin to see this is an impact in a community like this, a very remote community. This guy was there. He was with his baby. And because now they've been told that they have to be part of raising their children. So he was very comfortable. It wasn't like because we were there. No, it was just natural. And we noticed that. And there were a couple of them. And their kids would come in and they talk to their kids and back and forth. Before, you wouldn't see that. The woman would have, no matter where she is, she will have to be with those children. But those particular men that are in this project, that have gone through the training, you could see they have become very relaxed, and they're very comfortable holding babies. I mean, you could see that they knew how to handle the baby. So that's one of them. And then you could see they have their books where they go for antenatal and prenatal care with their wives. They're looking, they ensure that the wives are ready for the meetings. They go there, they help to weigh the babies and all that. I think it's working so far, male engagement is working very well with sexual reproductive health issues, more than it's working with the gender-based violence issues.